Hi everybody, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to another episode of Book Club from Hell. Today we're going to be going over the masterpiece Gothikana by RuNyx. Now, I first heard about this book from the Book Leo, who is one of my favorite booktubers, but I didn't end up catching the name, so when I saw it several months later at a Target, I actually almost paid full price for it, which would have been almost $20. So glad I did not do it. I also watched the review from Reads of Rachel, and let me just tell you, you can know how little of an impression this book made on me based on how I remembered almost nothing about it, and pretty much every plot twist in this book was a complete surprise to me as I read it. And you know why I almost bought it? Like, I know you're probably out there thinking, why would you pay almost $20 for this garbage book? But look, okay, this book had the most gorgeous book cover, and I do judge books by their covers, okay? And I love the title. I love the book cover. On the inside, there are all these beautiful photographs taken with quotes from books I actually do like. There is beautiful art. There's this little letter on the inside because the girl gets a letter early on in the book, and it was actually printed on like a lettery format. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm loving the vibe. I really want to read this book. And I ended up not buying it because I'm too cheap. And I'm so glad I did not buy it because this book was hot trash. Now, let me start by introducing our character at the beginning of the plot. The first 50 pages of this book actually were not that bad. I mean, they were a little cringe, but I was like genuinely thinking, wow, I wonder why everyone hates this. Trust me, I found out later. So to start out, we have our protagonist, Ebony Darkness Dementia Ravenway. Oh, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry, her name is Corvina. But, you know, considering the amount of goth stereotype that she's described with, I kind of assumed that that was her name. So we start off the book with Corvina Clem going to the new school that she got an exclusive invitation to. She's being told spoopy rumors by her taxi driver about how people go mad there, and when she arrives, she meets her roommate Jade. And now, while Corvina is described in literally giant paragraphs about just how goth she looks all the time, her roommate looks the opposite, wearing pink and having bright white hair. If this is reminding you of a certain duo, trust me, it reminded me of them too. And I'm pretty sure Reads of Rachel, who also did a video on this, used them as like her imagined actresses for the book. The descriptions of the clothing go on for so long that I feel like if this had been a Wattpad book, there absolutely would have been a little link saying click here and it will show you a picture of what they were wearing. And I do mean that as shade. Anyway, so she meets her roommate Jade and ends up finding out about the spoopy rumor that every 5 years there's a black ball held, and at the black ball, one person mysteriously goes missing, their body never to be found. Ooh. Corvina is also told by Jade that Jade's past roommate threw herself off the top of a building because she was allegedly having an affair with their teacher, who happens in this book to be the main love interest. Now, to introduce Vad Devereaux. Just as I mentioned how Corvina and her friend Jade remind me of the pair Wednesday and what's-her-face, have not watched the show, do not know her name. I had a very specific person in mind for Vad Devereaux. He's described as having this wild black hair and huge hands, and in the middle of his black mane, there's a single white stripe, you know, like a skunk. Anyway, for some reason, the only person I could imagine who looked anything like this was Johnny Depp from Sweeney Todd. So this entire book, I'm imagining Jen Ortega and Johnny Depp from Sweeney Todd carrying on a romantic affair. And other than the striped skunk in his hair, the most important thing you need to know about this book is that his eyes are gray, or as the author describes them, silver. And she really wants to make sure you know, because I started counting how many times she used it, about 175 out of the 399 pages in this book. She used it 25 times at least. It was... I wanted to hurt somebody. She first sees Mr. Devereaux when she's woken by this mysterious piano music playing at night, and she goes up to the tower, because, yes, their dorms are in a literal tower. She goes to the top of the tower, and he's up there playing the piano, and he shoos her off. Not long after that, she meets him in class. And every stinking interaction that they share is so die hard, try hard, bad boy that it makes me die a little inside. There's so much I want to read to you guys today. There's a lot I'm not going to because this book had extremely graphic smut all throughout it, and I was a little traumatized. So I'm not going to be reading that. There's so many quotes I want to read to you, but this was the first one that I remember reading in this book and literally laughing out loud in real time. "Are you scared?" Mr. Devereaux asked, not moving from his spot at all. Should I be? She asked, raising her eyebrows slightly, even as a part of her wanted to break the eye contact and blush furiously at the singular masculine attention from a very masculine male. Okay. Anyway, so yeah. Jenna Ortega and Johnny Depp having these conversations, these cringe conversations, and not even 100 pages in, like the first smutty scene comes up. It was very gross, very TMI, very 0 to 100. There's no hello, how are you, my name is. I hated it. On that note, I really think the whole Johnny Depp and Jenna Ortega thing matches too, because didn't Jenna Ortega like recently act in this movie where she was having an affair with her teacher? I don't know, I haven't seen it, but I'm pretty sure it exists, and I'm pretty sure the teacher's also an English teacher. Why is it always the English teachers? Literally, stop. Anyway, so over and over again, the book describes how Corvina feels lust. Like, that is the only word pretty much used. That's a big issue I have with this book, as it tends, as you probably saw the Silver incident, to use the exact same words over and over and over again. So, like, every 4 or 5 pages, I swear, this girl is going on about her lust for Mr. Deverell. I'm like, RuNyx, why are you using the word lust? Like, are you a youth pastor lecturing to teenagers? It's a really weird word to, like, you couldn't think of anything better to say? So eventually, Corvina has this letter to send to her mother, who's being kept away like in an institution. And so she can't send it at the school at that time, so she needs to go down to town. But she can't go down to town by herself, so Mr. Deverell agrees to take her in his car. So they go down to town and do their thing. And on the way back, this huge storm hits, and they have to pull off to the side of the road and wait it out. And while they do, they hook up. And I just feel like this was the one bed trope done just really, really, really badly. Like, you couldn't have even gotten a hotel, man. Like, it had to be in a car, in a storm. Okay, whatever. After they get back to school, they start carrying on this secret affair, which feels so wrong. And I'm not trying to get down on anybody who is into the whole student-teacher thing. There was one student-teacher romance book that I read, but it was not between a student of that teacher. It was between a teacher on the college and like a doctorate student on the college who were in the same field but had no intermingling classes. And like, that wasn't that bad. That was actually pretty good. But this feels weird. And I know Corvina is meant to be like 21, but the way she's written, and she's like never even kissed anyone before, just the way they write her just feels very And like, I get it, people want to read taboo romances and things like that, or dark romances. Now, the idea of dark romance or a really toxic relationship book actually really appeals to me, but I think a lot of these dark romance and taboo romance books really miss the point of why at least I enjoy them. For example, throughout the book there are several quotes from classics that do have really toxic relationships. Frankenstein, Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, A Long Fatal Love Chase, which also sucked because I kept thinking I could be reading a much better book than the one I'm reading right now. But I feel like there were certain quotes that she was quoting that were so almost out of context of the original book as to how I think she meant to apply it to the story. Like, these were quotes being said by the antagonist, by the bad guy, but they were heading chapters almost as if like to like be romantic, and it just, I don't know, I don't know. In my mind, the idea of a dark romance or toxic romance should be to showcase the worst sides of human nature: obsession, possession, how people abuse and hold on to each other and want to control each other, how people are codependent upon each other. Like, I love reading that is my jam. Like, some of my favorite books that I've ever read have those kind of relationships in them, but they're not portrayed as healthy. They are being portrayed as unhealthy and toxic, and how it destroys people or messes up their lives. Meanwhile, books like this, it's like, oh yeah, you're my madness. Literally, they say it so much. And again, and I'm not saying people can't have their little preferences and read a dark romance between a professor and his student. You know, it's fine. You can do that. I'm not judging much. If you want to read a dark romance about this creepy English teacher with skunk hair and this Wednesday knockoff, do it. Okay, I'm not going to say you can't do that, but I feel like the author, in my opinion, is taking this very seriously. And like, in her mind, I could be wrong, but in her mind, this like is on the level of these classics she's quoting. And let me tell you, girl, it is not. It is not. Like, sir, there is a Dark Academia book list where if we were villains and Gothikana are on, like, the same list, and that is a war crime. No, 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 no. Like, Dark Academia this, Dark Academia that. There is no dark academia about this at all. It's hardly dark, and there's nothing academically stimulating about it whatsoever. Anyway, let's get back on track to the plot, because that was a tangent. As they're having this affair, weird stuff keeps happening. Like, Corvina hears voices, and she sees shadows. And Corvina's actually, like, on the verge of a breakdown because both of her parents had schizophrenia. And now she's panicking that she also has schizophrenia. Meanwhile, Vad Deverell is like, it's okay, Corvina, because I'm going to be here for you no matter what. I can be your mountain, and I'm going to support you. At one point in the book, he literally says, I'm going to be the only voices in your head. Okay, sir. One day, Corvina and her friends are going through the woods because there are these creepy woods that no one goes in, but she wanders in, and her friends and her are wandering in them one day and find a shack that's locked from the outside, and there's a shadow apparently moving around in it. So they kind of freak out and leave. Now, a whole lot of nothing happens in this book until one of her friends, Troy, throws himself off the top of the building, just like Jade's old roommate, Alyssa. As you can imagine, Corvina is devastated, and Troy's brother comes to investigate it because he's like a detective, investigator, police officer thingy. And while he's there, he reveals he grew up with Vad Deverell, and dun dun dun, Vad Deverell owns the college secretly. The entire castle, mountain, creepy towers, that's all his. He owns it. He just hasn't told anybody yet and pretends to be a normal teacher. Corvina feels so betrayed, but like it lasts for 2 seconds, and they move on and make out, I'm pretty sure. But Vad reveals that his grandfather was a mass murderer. So there's another rumor going on throughout this book that there's this group of students called the Slayers who like took people from the town and brutally murdered them and tortured them. And that these Slayers were eventually killed by people at the college who found out about it. And that like ever since then the castle has been haunted. Well, Vad reveals that his grandpa who raised him was the OG Slayer. And that Vad Deverell is strongly implied to have killed his own grandfather once he found that out. And again, Corvina just takes this all in, kind of like, oh, that's a lot. Okay. There's literally one part in this book where she's like, I don't know anything that's going on with him, but I'm just going to trust him anyway. And I'm like, girl. So then Corvina starts hearing more voices, and the voices tell her that they need to look in the lake. And so she tells Vad Deverell, and what do you know it, they find 14 of the 15 bodies in the lake. Thankfully, by this point, most of the smut has died down, and I don't have to listen to it anymore. But RuNyx makes sure to let me know they're doing it at least twice a day. Thank you, needed to know that. Absolutely, like, couldn't have lived my life without that information. Also, off topic, but another hilarious quote from one of their makeout scenes was, "It was madness. The molecules in her body recognized the molecules in his. The madness in her blood recognized the madness in his. The melancholy in her soul recognized the melancholy in his." In the total of 2 pages during that scene, I remember RuNyx said the word madness at least 6 times. Then, shortly after the bodies have been discovered, the black ball appears, which is supposed to be on the night that the Slayers were killed, but also happenstance to always be on a full moon, and I'm pretty sure that's not how time works, but whatever. So the black ball comes up. Corvina gets this beautiful dress from Vad, and they, are masked, so they meet in secret on the dance floor. And then the ball, I kid you not, just becomes a giant orgy. Which, no, I'm not exaggerating, like literally orgy, and I was not expecting that, was not prepared for that at all. I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I'm already like 300 pages in, so I'm not quitting now, but I'm regretting my life choices. And Corvina and Vad are taking part in this activity, and as they are, I crap you not, Corvina is like, I wish I could just die right now, because that would be beautiful to die while we're doing all this stuff. And I'm like covered in blood because I think he like bit her or something, and I'm pretty sure she was bleeding, and she's like, I'd be covered in blood and it would be just the best way to die. She literally word for word is like, it would be beautiful. There are so many what the heck moments in this book, especially during the smut. Like, it literally says one time that Vad is punching Corvina. Like, that is the most unsexy thing you could have possibly written, RuNyx. Anyway, I don't want to talk about this bad smut ever again. I don't want to think about it again, so we're just gonna move past this. So Partly through the party, it is discovered that 2 girls have gone missing, one of them being Jade, Corvina's roommate. So they go looking for these 2 people, and with the voices guiding her, Corvina ends up finding the one girl in the lake. After they find Corvina and bring her back, they're still looking for Jade when suddenly Corvina is knocked out and she wakes up drugged and on the roof. And it turns out Jade is not Jade. She is actually Bad Deverell's cousin and the granddaughter of the grandpa and his girlfriend back during the Slayer times. So she murdered the original Jade and stuffed her body in the shed 2 years ago. But when Corvina and her friends saw the shed, there was something moving around in there. But it couldn't have been Jade because Jade was with them when they saw the shed, I'm pretty sure. So do you see the plot hole here? Like, what was moving in that shed? Because it wasn't Jade and it wasn't a dead body. Anyway, Jade wants to go off and have an incestuous relationship with her cousin Bad because, of course, why the heck wouldn't she? I mean, like, nothing in this book surprises me at this point anymore. She is going to have Corvina walk off the roof under the influence of a drug called Devil's Breath. What in the Riverdale? But Vad comes up to the roof. In front of a group of people, mind you, because I very distinctly remember them telling Corvina to not jump off the roof because Corvina's standing on the edge and Jade is like yelling at them to help her. But anyway, in front of all these people that are mysteriously forgotten about once the scene arrives, Vad Deverell pushes Jade off the roof and she dies. And then Corvina is like dragged off of the ledge by Vad, but she's just overwhelmed by all these voices. So then Corvina is temporarily institutionalized so she can recover. But the doctors are like, I don't know, man. It could have been schizophrenia, but no, who knows? It could have been ghost. Her brain looks normal. Just keep an eye on her, bruh. Because, yeah, a horrific mental illness is absolutely, like, the same as being able to hear ghost. There's a better way to tell this story than that. Anyway, so Vad keeps an eye on her. Fast 5 years later, they're married. They want to have kids. And Corvina is like, we need to go back. Like, we haven't been back to that place in 5 years because you don't want to trigger my potential schizophrenia, but I don't care anymore. That place is our legacy for when we have children. She's like, it's dark, but it's also good. And I'm like, I don't see any good, Corvina. Literally just darkness. And then at the end of Corvina's chapter, it says, the end for now. And I swear, RuNyx, do not threaten me with a sequel. And guess what? The best part about this book is we find answers to nothing. Nothing. Now, the authors now, RuNyx, like, mentioned something about how, oh, this book helped her discover how, like, there are just mysterious things in the world you don't have answers to. RuNyx, do not try to cop out of your plot holes with that. There are other books that actually do deal with that subject, and they deal with it well. And that's fine. I actually think that's a really good theme to read about in books. One of my favorite authors, Daniel Handler, also known as Lemony Snicket of the series Unfortunate Events, does that really well in a way that children can comprehend and understand. But that was not what this is. At least I don't feel like it was. I feel like y'all were just way too lazy to go back and rewrite your plot holes. Because your mysteriousness doesn't say anything about the story or the themes of the story. You just set up for this big reveal and never deliver on the promise. Okay, there's a big difference between the two. There was also a bonus chapter in my edition that I'm not sure if it was available in other people's editions, but it implied that there was some ancient creature living in the tunnels beneath the mountains, and that was the reason all these people were disappearing. And I think, personally, it was RuNyx's way of trying to fix some plot holes, but I'm calling bull. You know why? Because, one, this was not mentioned in the book, like this ancient creature living in the mountains, at all. I'm almost like 100% sure that was not mentioned. And I'm pretty sure that she added it later because people were complaining. Also, I'm irritated because, like, it was not natural at all. It was literally just a little hooked on, like, oh, by the way, this happened. It's just sloppy. You could have, it would have been much better if from the beginning she had weaved that naturally into the story. And then she could have gotten away without revealing a bunch of stuff because she would have naturally built up to this reveal that there was something dark and mysterious rather than just tossing it on at the end in a bonus chapter. Anyway, this was not a boring read. I will say that. Like, I was entertained. But I was also, like, I'm not going to go out of my way to recommend this. Again, if you like this book, that's your prerogative, man. You can like whatever books you want to read. I mean, I like books that other people hate, I'm pretty sure. So, you know, you do you. But we are adding this to the halls of the book club from hell. And I hope you join me next time. Anyway, I hope she never writes a sequel because I don't think my mental health can handle that right now. Thanks everybody for coming again to my channel. I really appreciate you checking out this video. if you want to read an actual good dark academia book, I recommend If We Were Villains. All right, like read that. Okay, don't put yourself through this romance, fake, dark academia stuff. All right. Thank you as always for watching my videos. I hope you've got a good laugh out of this, if anything, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.